Right now, Pittsburgh's best sports show is about to begin. Call us or tweet us. We've got things to talk about on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call.
Good evening, everyone. This is Bob Pompeani. We're live tonight in the Fan Cave, downtown Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. It's 412-575-2600. You can also hit me up on Twitter. It's at KDPomp and the Pony Express on Twitter. Andrew Fillipponi up at 93.7 The Fan on a night. The Pirates put a game together, and they pretty much led this one from start to finish. They win 8-4 over the Cardinals. They got a very interesting pitching combination tonight from Carmen Mlodzinski, who's in the starter role, 5 innings, did a very good job. And then it's Thomas Harrington, who looked much better than his first time out, Andrew. And that was encouraging to see because 5 strikeouts, 1 walk. He gave up 3 runs, sure, but he completed the game in a 4-inning save, which is rare around here.
Yeah, I don't think that's happened since like the 90s.
98.
Yeah, thank you, Bob, for that. Look, it's the first winning streak of the year. The Cardinals are expected to be the other doormat in the division because they did practically nothing in the offseason. They did not make, if you can imagine this, they made fewer moves than the Pirates did to better themselves. So that's really a low bar for them. And at some point, a bad team's going to even win a few series. And this does not change my mind about the Pirates, but look, these things are a given if they're going to avoid, say, 95 losses. You've got to beat mediocre or bad teams at home. They did tonight, fairly convincing win. Joey Bart had a couple of big hits, obviously. And then tomorrow you've got Skeens, and that'll really be interesting for me. The Cardinals have not seen Paul Skeens in a very long time. That was one of those games they blew last year with Skeens on the mound at home when he was so good. And it turned into a bullpen game again, and we saw Colin Holderman and David Bednar, and those guys are gone now. And so it is bullpen by committee and different types of levers being pulled and buttons being pushed by Derek Shelton, and unfortunately not often the correct ones. And if they're going to go anywhere in 2025, that's got to get sorted out. They've got to figure out roles and have guys pitch better in important situations and close games out of that bullpen.
Well, the news concerning Aaron Rodgers is there's no news, which means people are wondering about Wednesday night. Pat McAfee will come to town, put together an event which is sold out at PPG Paints Arena. Many people have come to the conclusion that's when Aaron Rodgers will be unveiled. I still don't think that's going to happen. What's your best guess on that? And if it doesn't happen, what do you think happens after that? How long does this thing play out in your mind?
Well, Cavalli said last night on the showdown with us that it's not happening Wednesday unless he signs beforehand. And I'm not going to argue or debate Mark because he works for McAfee. So something tells me that Mark's not going to put out bad information because I don't think that would put him in the good graces of his boss. So when he said that to us on Sunday, I kind of perked up in my chair, which is the opposite of what Mark does when Mike Tomlin's talking, because I just don't. I've thought for weeks there was going to be a huge surprise announcement. I don't think that way anymore. And I don't know, Bob. I mean, I think draft week probably makes the most sense because that's when Rodgers signed with the Jets. And maybe he's thinking, if I could do it, that way a year ago, why can't I do it the same way this time around? It's not like the Steelers have started OTAs like some other teams out there. So I still think it's going to happen. But I will admit I'm a little bit more willing to accept the idea that maybe Rodgers is just a drama queen and is playing the Steelers, and someday randomly he's going to drop on us that he's retiring from football and not interested in playing in 2025.
That's one thing that remains a possibility. We'll see how that goes. 412-575-2600, that's the number to call. We'll take those calls next as we continue live. It's the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call right here on KDKA Plus and 93.7 The Fan on most nights. All right, welcome back. This is our Xfinity mobile tweet of the night. It comes from John Linder, a former intern of mine here at KDKA. He has a show called Linder Show Miami. He says this: Gretzky and Ovi averaged .60 goals a game in their career. Mario Lemieux averaged .75 goals per game in his career. So those two first guys played 572 more games than 66 because of all of his cancer issues and back problems. If Mario had played those games, averaging what he averaged, he'd have 429 more goals, giving him 1,119 goals. Pony, how about that? And I've always said that about Lemieux. We lost about 5 years of his career based on all the injuries, cancer, and everything else he went through.
Yeah, I think his numbers would be, a lot better for sure. I'm not, it begs the question with Mario, what if he doesn't have the injury problems? What does he look like as a hockey player in his late 30s? Is he still as or close to as productive as Ovechkin and Sid, who have done an incredible job of still being elite players at this age? I mean, they're not just guys that are still NHL players or still good enough to round out a roster or be a part of a good team. They're stars at this point. You're not supposed to be a star as a forward in the NHL when you're in your late 30s. We've seen defensemen do it. Chris Chelios, Nick Lidstrom, guys like that. Zdeno Chara played into his 40s.
Raymond Bourque.
We've seen
close to.
Yeah, we've seen goaltenders, many of them actually almost find like a fountain of youth sometimes when they're in their late 30s and play better than they have previously in their careers. But for centermen and for wingers to do it at this level in the twilight of their career is just extraordinary. And Bob, isn't it wild? I was saying that I made this remark on the show today at the end of the show. The Penguins got eliminated from playoff contention last night, and it barely, it didn't register. There wasn't a peep about it. You've gotten we got barely any calls. Yeah. We got no calls about it on our show today. You guys, I don't know how much you touched on it, but that would have been seismic news in Pittsburgh just a couple of years ago. The Penguins missing the playoffs. And now it's 3 years in a row, and we almost expect it.
Well, I think also it's a way it happened. The last 2 years, they went down to the final game of the season. This time it was fait accompli. I think everyone knew it was over before it actually was over. So,
that's what makes it even worse.
Yes,
because you've had Sidney Crosby healthy all year, and to your point, you didn't even contend for a playoff spot. You got eliminated with 2 weeks still to go in this season.
No, and we saw Erik Karlsson do what he does a lot of, which is pinched at the wrong time while on a power play, and it cost them a goal the other night shorthanded and led for Chicago to get the lead, and they end up beating them. Chicago will be in town here tomorrow night. Let's get to the calls. We have our number one Cochrane Go One Better caller of the night. That would be John in Lower Borough, who's first up tonight. Hello, John. How are you? John. John's not there. So we will go to Burton Ross-Traver, who takes over his position as the number one Cochrane Go One Better caller of the night. Go ahead, Bert.
Guys, thanks. Yeah, looking back over the past 2 years, it occurs to me that the Steelers may be better off with a guy like Rudolph, a pro-set quarterback, as opposed to Field, a rollout guy. Given the problems they've had with pass protection, I'm thinking it might be easier for them to block for a guy who doesn't move around as much. I'm wondering what you think about that and whether or not that could help them this year.
Possibly. Guys will tell you it's, especially with elusive quarterbacks, you got to be on your feet on an offensive line as well. But I still think it would be nice to have a guy with the mobility that Justin Fields has and, work on his game in the pocket. Mason Rudolph is pretty good. I think he showed us when he was last here that he can step up in the pocket and make plays. He has to do it more consistently, I think, Andrew, but I still would. I want the leg component. I want the mobility component. I still think it's very important in today's game.
So where do you come down on Jalen Milroe then, and all the conjecture now about what's going to happen with him now that he's been invited to the draft?
See, that's an interesting thing for me. For him to be invited, that means somebody thinks he's going to be taken in the first round, and that would open up questions about which team needs a quarterback later in the first round, and that would have to be the Steelers if they want to do that. But I think I agree with a lot of draft experts who think that he's more of a project here. He's a tremendous athlete. He's got a better arm than probably everyone in the first round. But can he put it together on a consistent basis? I don't know. I think that may be rushing to a pick, especially in the first round when they have considerably other needs that they need to take care of before they, in that case. I would rather take somebody who's going to help me in another position and worry about the draft of quarterbacks next year.
Well, if they like his athleticism a lot and they're convinced they're going to get Aaron Rodgers, then maybe this is a Michael Penix behind Kirk Cousins situation, Bob. I mean, I would not be in favor of it at 21. He's a raw player. He's coming off a bad year, honestly. I am intrigued by his running and the arm strength, but I don't really trust the Steelers to put Milroe in a situation to put it all together. But I can't rule out that possibility now of maybe doing it that way, of Mike Tomlin thinking, ideally, I'll have Aaron Rodgers as my quarterback in 2025, and then maybe Milroe takes over in 2026 or even 2027, depending on how Aaron Rodgers plays. I don't know. It is odd that a guy that has like a third-round grade on him has been invited when the NFL went out and said, basically, in all the memos they sent out to media, that they do not want Geno Smith or Will Levis situations anymore.
Right.
That they only want guys there who are not going to have to sit in the waiting room and basically look at their phone and try to fight back tears. They're inviting guys who they think are definitely going to go in the first round.
It's very interesting. And I'm not sure what to conclude by that, but we'll find out on that draft night. In the meantime, let's go back to John in Lower Borough, who's back with us. And John, apparently it was our problem, but thank you for calling back.
Bob Nutting does not own PNC Park. He leases it from the Stadium Authority. I believe the authority can bring back competitive baseball to Pittsburgh. They can tell Nutting, the lower your payroll, the higher the rent. They can make it very uncomfortable for him, not the sweetheart deal he has now.
Yeah, but that deal still is in place, and that's not going to change based on how it's been drawn up. Now, when it ends, who knows what can happen there. But yeah, again, the topic is going to be the same until they show differently, and until they do, that complaint will come up, Andrew. It's just the way it is right now, and they deserve a lot of the criticism for not doing anything in this offseason. They had a chance to, as you mentioned, the Cardinals. You look at their lineup tonight, and I dare anyone who hasn't followed them recently to look at their lineup and tell me how many of the guys you really recognize. So I don't know if that's considered a rebuild for them or what they're doing, but the Pirates shouldn't be in that posture. They have Paul Skeens. They had Jared Jones before he got injured, Keller, and all these young pitchers coming up. They needed offense, and they didn't do enough of it.
Baseball, and I know we have one or two outlier teams every year, but they've got a real competitive balance issue where there appears to be only like 10 teams that are really trying to win, and a bunch of teams that either don't care or are comfortable to kick the can down the road and have years, 2 or 3 years in the future as when they're circling to be, or when they're focused on being competitive again. And I think it's bad for the game. I mean, look at some of these. I know it's April, and the weather's not great everywhere yet, but it just seems like some of these baseball markets, I put the games on, they just don't care. I mean, Bob, they're playing in a minor league ballpark in Sacramento. There's probably, you want to talk about 2,000 people at the Pirates game, there might have been 500 people at their game tonight. They can't even fill that place. I mean, It's embarrassing. How about Miami situation? Yeah. How about Tampa? I mean, Rob Manfred and the owners got to get together and say, I mean, what are we doing here? Is it really all about the Dodgers and Yankees? If it is, then fine, we'll keep it the way that it is. But if you other 28 teams want to try to win every year, we got to come up with a better system because that keeps fans engaged for 6 months, Bob. Already you've got fan bases that are throwing in the towel on the season. Yeah, all you have to do is look at what was in the attendance tonight at PNC Park, and that's what I was trying to tell Joe today, who keeps reminding me that it's as healthy as it's been economically, and they're taking in billions. Okay, fine. But that doesn't solve the competitive balance issue. And I for one, think it's maybe time that they do something. I realize it has to go through collective bargaining, and that won't be easy, but sooner or later, unless you want to not change what you have, I mean, every year we know the Dodgers are going to win that division or at least get in the playoffs every single year. Now, will they win a championship? That's a different story because 7 games is different, Andrew. We got to go to a break on that note. We'll come back, continue that, and take more calls if we can right here on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. All right, welcome back. 412-575-2600. Bob Pompeani, Andrew Fillipponi at your service tonight. We're going to go out to Jay in Pittsburgh, who joins us right now. Hey, Jay, how are you?
Hey, guys, how you doing?
All right, what's up?
Hey, Jay.
I want to talk about the salary cap and how I don't agree that they need a salary cap in baseball for this fact simply because there are teams like the Rays, sometimes the Marlins, the Kansas City Royals, teams, they develop talent, draft well, develop pitching, and they win. They won championships. So
no. What championships have they won? Marlins back in the day, but Tampa Bay has gotten close. I give them credit for developing, but as Andrew said, these are teams that can't draw anyone to watch their games because I think people know going in that they realistically don't have a chance unless they hit on just about everything. And to me, that's not the kind of balance you want as a league, Pony.
No. It shouldn't be predetermined. It feels that way at times. I know the season really doesn't lend itself to having huge surprises because it's just so long and the cream tends to rise to the top. But, baseball, I think, look, maybe they feel like if it's the Yankees and Cubs every year or the Yankees and Dodgers, Bob, it's good because those markets will watch in October and that'll make the World Series ratings higher. I don't know, but it stinks when you're in a place like Pittsburgh and you feel like you've got no shot after the first pitch of the season.
Yeah, I see the game on behind you. I have no access to it right now. It was closer than I thought it would be, given the fact that Walter, what is it again? 62-60 at this point. So Walter Clayton Jr. did not score a point in the first half. And if you had told me that, Pony, I would have said, well, then Houston's going to win going away. It's not been that way.
No, and I've not watched most of the second half because I've been talking to you. But, yeah, closer than you'd expect when the best score in the tournament has basically been held in check.
All right, Pony, thanks as always. Appreciate it. By the way, you can tune in that game on KDKA, and we will follow with KDKA News at 11 o'clock, which will be on late tonight. So thanks for joining us back here tomorrow at 10:35. We hope you have a great night.